Ladies and gentlemen, the idea of any type of movie is you got to have a title and a poster that's going to draw attention, especially in the late 50s, early 60s. And this one had it. Just look at this poster. Isn't this beautiful? It's Roger Corman's The Undead. Now, this is the latest request, our good follower of the channel, John Walco. And this was a delayed request because I was having trouble with my Filmora program. Filmora 12 was giving my computer fit, so we went into Clipchamp. So we thank everybody for the patience, John as well. Now, John always gives us interesting requests. Now, get this movie. This film was directed by the great Roger Corman and starred B-level actors Pamela Duncan, Alison Hayes, Richard Garland, and Val Dufour. It also featured Corman regulars Richard Devon, Dick Miller, Mel Wells, and Bruno Vasoda. The author's original working title was The Trance of Diana Love. Sounds like an Another World plot. The film follows the story of a prostitute, Love, played by Duncan, who was put into a hypnotic trance by psychic Quintus, played by Dufour, that causes her to regress to her previous life. Juicy. Hayes later starred in The Attack of the 50-Foot Woman in 58, and the film was released on March 15, 57 by the Great American International Pictures as a double feature with Voodoo Woman. Now, Quintus, a psychic researcher who has spent 7 years in Tibet, wants to send someone back in time into a past life. He hires for $500, big money for 1957, a prostitute, Diana Love, and plans to send her to a trance over 48 hours so she can access her past life. Quintus' former professor is present to witness this. Now, Quintus eventually puts Diana into a trance and sends her back into the Middle Ages, where he shares the body of her past self, Helene, who is in prison, sentenced to die at dawn under suspicion of being a witch. At Diana's urging, Helene escapes prison, earning the attention of Livia, the witch for whose crimes Helene has been blamed, and of Satan himself. Via the psychic link between Diana and Helene, Quintus physically goes back in time to convince Helene to avoid her death so he can witness the result of history changing. However, if Helene evades execution, her future selves, including Diana, will never come into existence, so she accepts her fated death. When Helene dies, her link with Diana disappears, leaving Quintus physically stranded in the past, much to Satan's amusement. Now, Billy Barty also appears in the movie as well as somebody called the Imp. So it was one of his early ones. And, of course, Dick Miller as his iconic role as the leper. Now, The Undead was inspired by an interest in reincarnation during the 1950s, as was the film The She Creature. Notably, the book The Season for Bridie Murphy by Maury Bernstein was made into a film in 1956. Now, the movie itself, it's separated according to the author Charles Griffith, or the creator Charles Griffith. It separated all the different things with sequences with the devil, which we really elaborate, and the dialogue in the past was all in iambic pentameter. Roger got very excited by that. He handed the script around for everybody to read, but nobody understood the dialogue, so he told me to translate it into English. The script was ruined. Now, the movie itself hasn't got as much recognition through the years, but the overall plot, I read about this in an old Roger Corman tribute book years ago, and there was some talk this was going to be made into kind of a remake in the 1970s, but it never came about. Now, Mel Wells said it was a wonderful script, and it probably would have been the cult film rather than Little Shop of Horrors had it been shot that way. But either Roger or someone American didn't think it was commercially viable to do it that way, and at the last minute a decision was made to rewrite the script without that. Now, by the time The Undead was being made, the popularity of reincarnation was starting to dwindle. Therefore, Corman decided that he needed to change it up a little and add the time travel elements of Quintus and change the title to The Undead. Now, in May 1956, Corman had announced the movie was to be made by Walter Mirisch at Allied Artists. Now, in July 1956, Variety reported that Corman would fully finance the film himself, although it would be distributed by AIP. Now, Pamela Duncan says Roger Corman initially called her up out of the blue and offered the lead. I don't know what made him think of me, except that he must have seen me in something. I worked a lot and was on TV a lot. Again, she let her work with Corman on a very underrated movie, Attack of the Crab Monsters, if you can find it. Now, Mel Wells called his role of Smolkin one of the best characters I ever played. I played him kind of insane, and what was wonderful was that one of my reviews compared me to Stanley Holloway in one of his Shakespearean gravedigger roles. Now, AIP's special effects artist, Paul Blaisdell, was drafted to play the corpse in the coffin in the graveyard scene, which he said was a lot of fun. His eyes, however, were supposed to remain open and staring throughout the scene, and he said it was difficult because little particles of the coffin lid kept falling into them like dust. Now, filming of the movie started on July 26, 1956. The movie was filmed at a converted supermarket and was completed in only 10 days, costing, according to Griffith, $70,000 American. Duncan says it was shot in 6 days. Griffith said it was not $70,000 but $55,000, 15 trees with Spanish moss as well, and a fog machine. That was a great deal for Roger back then. A big deal for Roger. Now, the bats that the imp and witch continually changed into were left over from another Corman movie, It Conquered the World. You got to recycle, of course. Now, Griffith says the film was a fun picture to shoot. We filled in it, the supermarket, with palm trees and fog, and it was the first time Roger had used any of that stuff. He didn't like to write anything. You could see the zipper on the witch's dress, and all the gimmicks were very obvious and phony. Roger deliberately played to Skid Row, a degenerate audience. Wells recalls, we also almost died of asphyxiation from all the creosote fog that was created in the supermarket. Devon said he had a bee smoker to create the dreadful smelling fog. Now, some exteriors were shot at a place called the Witch House in Beverly Hills. Now, the movie was the first of several Devon made with Corman. However, he did not enjoy the undead, saying Corman's temper was really quite awesome. On the undead, someone had left one of the speeches out of the script, so naturally I couldn't learn that what wasn't there. And he was just not just upset, he was maniacal. Anything that cost a penny over his minuscule budget turned him into a monster. He was just screaming his head off. Everybody was telling him that it could be rectified, and I said calmly, listen, Roger, it's all right, don't worry about it. We'll get somebody to write it out on a card or something, and I'll read it. So one of the prop guys wrote it out in a little cardboard box, and I read it. We did it in one take, and that was it. Now, the LA Times, critical reception, one of the major reviews, called The Undead a better than usual horror film, a rather imaginative yarn. For this type of picture, the acting is quite good. Corman has turned out a good product. Now, Variety called the film a minor league programmer, finding it technically proficient. Now, The Undead was later featured on Mystery Science Theater 3000 during its 8th season, where they comment on everything from small sets, tossing cats, bat dialogue, and the horrors of having seen other Corman movies. It was also shown on the MeTV show Svengoolie on April 3rd, 2021, and again on December 18th, 2021. Now, a lot of people have said the movie was kind of a hidden Roger Corman classic that has been rediscovered and undiscovered through the years. Anything with Roger Corman between this part in the late 50s, the early 60s, it's cult movies, and that's what you want in a cult movie, because it's quite interesting. Because having Pamela Duncan in there, and Pamela Duncan was a very interesting actress, is good to check out. So, John, thanks a lot for the requests. If you like what we're doing here with our what do you call the vintage horror and thriller reviews, helped by John and other followers of the channel, let us know with a like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget, money we make here on the channel goes to various charities we support. So if you want to add on a little bit of cash to, there's a thing with it, you can add the monetization. Please do so. Any donation towards what we're doing is greatly appreciated. Thanks for listening. Bye.